Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for attending. I'm Scott at Chief Architect, and we're here today to discuss 3D rendering and the new rendering engine that will be introduced in Chief Architect X13. We recently covered 3D rendering and ray tracing in detail on two previous webinars, and those are available on our website. Also, chat out a link for you today. In today's session, we're going to cover a brief overview of 3D rendering. Then we're going to spend the majority of the time discussing the new features and rendering engine that we have for Chief Architect X13 that we expect to announce in Q1 of next year. I'm happy to introduce my co-host today, Ryan Matern. Ryan is a senior software engineer working with the team on our new rendering engine. Welcome, Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I'm Ryan Matern. I'm a software engineer here at Chief. I've been here almost 9 years now, and I have spent most of that time working on rendering or rendering-related features. I have led kind of the project that is resulting in most of the rendering improvements that we're going to be talking about today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're excited, Ryan. Also on today's webinar are a number of Chief Architect staff to keep an eye on us, as well as help with your questions. So first, I'm going to go through my presentation, which should last just over 10 minutes. During this time, you can chat your questions into our staff, and then following my presentation, we'll open up for your live questions, and you can raise your hand and chat. You'll find these two settings in your GoToWebinar panel. Today's session will be recorded. We'll be sending a link out in the next day or so, and we'll also be including a survey, and we would greatly appreciate any feedback you could give us. And with that, let me switch over here and get started with the presentation.
In this 3D rendering seminar, I'm going to provide a rendering overview, cover the 3 keys to a good render. Then I'll talk about the new rendering engine that will be introduced in Chief Architect X13 and look at its results and performance. Let's go into the program and start with an overview of rendering in Chief Architect. To create a 3D view in Chief Architect, they must originate from a 2D plan view as we have on the screen. To generate a 3D view, there are 2 types of cameras you can use. Underneath the 3D menu, you're going to find an orthographic view and a perspective view. The orthographic view typically is associated with your elevation views. There are also orthographic full overviews. These orthographic overviews or projections represent this model in 2 dimensions. By using a form of a parallel projection, they don't have a vanishing point as a 3D perspective does. To generate a 3D perspective view, I'll return back into the floor plan view. Underneath the 3D menu, come down to create a perspective full overview. And in this perspective full overview, you can see that there's a vanishing point, and it looks much more realistic than the orthographic view. The 3 key elements to creating a great rendering are materials, lighting, and your camera settings. This information has been covered in detail in our past seminar on 3D rendering and ray tracing. You can find both of those videos on our website. To talk briefly about materials, you can use the Adjust Material Definition tool. I'll hover over this for a minute. We refer to it oftentimes as a rainbow tool. You can click on this tool, select your material, and then on the Properties panel you're going to find a number of settings for your material, including the type of material. There are a number to choose from, and then for each one of those items you're going to find a number of settings down here, as well as maps for roughness, metal, and then to learn more about this information on the materials, you can see our help file. We also have done a video webinar on this session. You can learn more about the materials, very important to creating a great rendering. The next element for great rendering is lighting, both natural and man-made. In the example I have here on the screen, you'll see a sun shadow being projected onto the house. This is because I've defined a north pointer and created a sun angle with a specific time and day for a given latitude and longitude. And finally, I've turned on the option in the camera to display the shadows. The next component of lighting is man-made. These are more important for your interior shots, but for this exterior, as I open up this sconce light, you'll find a specific light panel where you can come in, you can define the lights by light source. Some lights, in this case, have more than one light source. For this sconce, you'll see that it has two. Each one of these lights you can adjust. You can make it a point light or spotlight. You can define what the lumens are, and you can define what the color is. There are other settings in here for the lighting. Again, refer to the help file to learn a lot more about our lighting options. A third element for great rendering are the camera settings. Chief Architect offers 10 different rendering techniques, plus a ray trace rendering option. Each one of these rendering techniques can be adjusted to achieve the look you desire, from simple line drawing to conceptual to photorealistic. I will point you to a previous webinar session we covered these camera settings in detail using Chief Architect X12. Beginning with Chief Architect X13, there is an entirely new rendering engine that includes real-time ray tracing. Real-time ray tracing has become possible with the latest video cards, and Chief Architect is excited to support this new technology that provides drastically improved performance and quality across all of its rendering techniques. So why an entirely new rendering engine? In June 2018, Apple announced it would not be supporting OpenGL in the near future. OpenGL is a high-level rendering interface for cross-platform applications, and really, it was the first 3D API available around the same time Chief Architect originated. For continued support on the Mac platform, we needed to make a change. For both Mac and PC, they have interfaces, DirectX on the PC and Metal on the Mac. These interfaces are lower level than OpenGL, which means it's more work for us to initially support them, but since they are platform specific, they can be more efficient and faster. Here are a few results to share. With this interior kitchen scene, the X12 ray trace took more than 90 minutes to generate. On X13, on the exact same machine, it took 20 seconds and only 3 seconds using a higher-end video card. For this exterior scene, the X12 ray trace took 2 hours to generate. On X13, again on the exact same machine, it took 7 seconds and only 3 seconds using a higher-end video card. A key contributor to the improved performance is the ray trace rendering can now be performed on the video card GPU versus the computer's CPU. These new video card GPUs are highly optimized for 3D rendering. Let's take a look at what the rendering hardware requirements are for Chief Architect X13, and really, what hardware is the best. Today, as of the first part of November, real-time ray tracing for DirectX, one of the best cards that we're aware of would be the NVIDIA RTX 3 series. And specifically, what I've used here for the demonstration is the RTX 3080. And just on October 28th, AMD announced a new Radeon RX 6000 series that should support real-time ray tracing. However, we have not been able to verify that. That card should ship the mid part of November. What's the minimum for supporting real-time ray tracing? It's the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060 with 6 GB or more, or the GeForce GTX 1660. And again, the recommended video card that we have today would be the GeForce RTX cards. Next question is, what about Mac? For Chief Architect X13, it will not be supporting real-time ray tracing on the Mac. Mac recently announced that they would be supporting their own video card. That video card has yet to be produced and put out into the Macs. Therefore, we initially are supporting the PC platform with X13 for real-time ray tracing. More than likely, that will set back one version for the Apple and Mac platforms. And finally, we will not be removing the current ray trace option that we have today. That will continue as older video cards need to be supported, as well as the Mac platform. You can expect our current ray tracer to exist as it does today in X12. One key benefit of our real-time ray tracing is a consistent lighting model across all of our rendering techniques. Currently, when you use the explicit ray trace option, it in effect exports to a separate rendering engine with a different lighting model that requires adjustments to your lighting and in some cases your materials. All time consuming, not to mention the amount of time the ray trace takes. By using the same lighting model across all rendering techniques, these issues go away and you get immediate results. Let's take a look at the new real-time ray tracing option. First, in your preferences, you can determine if your video card supports real-time ray tracing. In my case, you can see that my NVIDIA card does support the new hardware ray tracing. When I open this saved camera, the default view is vector. When I switch my render technique to the physically based camera, this view should look a lot like it does in X12. To enable the real-time ray tracing, I'll open up the technique options. In the global illumination area, there is a new checkbox to use ray tracing, enable refraction, and add line drawing on top. When I enable ray tracing and return back to the view, you're going to notice the real-time ray tracing. As I rotate the camera and then pause, the scene will refresh and, depending on the speed of your video card, improve with each pass. You get immediate feedback of a very high quality scene. As you rotate or zoom in, the camera will refresh and improve the scene, again depending on the quality of your video card. As I mentioned, you can add line drawing to this camera. If we return back into the render technique settings, go back in, enable line drawing over the top. You can control the thickness of the line drawing. Go ahead and close that. Maybe zoom out just a little bit, rotate around, and you can see the effects of the line drawing over the physically based real-time ray trace render. It takes a little bit longer than the normal ray trace, but again, very, very fast depending on the type of video card that you may have. Performance in general is greatly improved. If you want to work and edit within the watercolor view, as I make that change to the watercolor scene, you're going to notice that it's much faster than what you had in X12. Notice how smooth the camera moves in this view now. A new clay rendering technique has been added to create more abstract views. This camera also supports real-time ray tracing and will support adding line drawing on top as well. Further, you can modify this view by changing the coloring or by using the materials for your coloring. As we make these changes, you can see the effects you can generate for your scenes. Chief Architect X13's new rendering is really exciting as I open up this saved exterior camera view to close this session. The improved quality and performance will allow you to create great renderings in a fraction of the time and offers many new rendering improvements. And with the real-time ray tracing, you'll be able to easily generate both artistic and realistic views for your clients.
So really exciting with the new Chief Architect rendering engine. And with that, if you have questions, I saw a number of them coming through here just briefly as I glanced over at my other monitor, and we'd like to take your questions live. Let's try and focus on the 3D rendering questions. And with that, Carrie, do we have a few people out there with questions today?
Hey, Scott, we do. We have a question from Robin Fisher. Hi, Robin. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. Hello. Thank you. So I do have a Mac.
Okay.
So please, I don't mean to be an idiot, but I really don't understand the issue of it not supporting it. I mean, does this mean that ray trace for me is not going to be great next year? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, so thanks for your question, Robin. And first of all, X12 and ray tracing that we have today will continue on the Mac and as well as older video cards. Earlier this year, Mac has announced they have a new video card. That new video card isn't even available today. And that's the card that I believe they've announced that would support the real-time ray tracing. And so given those circumstances, we've kind of concentrated our efforts on what's available today and what can be done today. And I'll just pause there and maybe let Ryan jump in here and add any more details that he'd like to about the Mac platform.
Sure. So the fact that we don't have access yet to the GPUs that they'll be producing in the coming Macs is certainly a factor. The other factors are that Scott mentioned in his presentation that we're using different technology now on the Mac versus on Windows. And so there's differences in how we would actually implement this in terms of the different backends. And during the majority of this development, those APIs didn't necessarily exist in kind of a finished form on the Mac. And so we weren't really able to pursue that as much as we would have liked to. That said, that's something that we'll evaluate moving forward when we know more about the Mac hardware. And as those APIs on the Mac are more fleshed out and we have a better idea of what they're going to be capable of, we'll certainly evaluate that moving forward.
Yes, Scott, we have a question from Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, how are you? I'm also a Mac user, and are there any advantages to the new X12 with the existing Mac platform without the real-time ray tracing?
Yeah, sure. So as we move forward in X13, in specific for you Mac users, I think you're going to find a number of new features that are pretty exciting. And maybe, Ryan, you could explain a few of those things.
Yeah, so some of what Scott showed here today, like the clay rendering technique and the ability to put lines on top of various techniques other than watercolor, those features will be available generally. Those will be available on hardware that doesn't support ray tracing, and that includes the Mac. So there are certainly some improvements that are being made to the existing renderer that will be available without ray tracing support. But kind of what Scott showed in terms of the physically based views and the improvements that we've made to those won't be available on the hardware that doesn't support ray tracing.
Okay, thank you. I'll be waiting with bated breath until I can use it on the Mac.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Kathy.
Scott and Ryan, we have Sean here with a question. Hi, Sean. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I've been doing some work in Twinmotion, bringing my models in, and there are a couple of features with materials where you can actually change materials in a 3D view and to size like wood and things like that. One of the other important things, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it here, is it has a feature where you can parallel your vertical lines when you're looking at a scene. So like your camera's not tilted, that it automatically makes your vertical lines straight up and down to where you get a realistic view versus kind of like tilted to the side. Is that something that we're addressing here?
Yeah, so Sean, thanks for your question. Sounds like maybe you have a couple questions here. Using the Adjust Material Definition tool, you should be able to click, and let's just maybe grab this tile down here on the floor. You can come in here and make adjustments on that material using both the pattern, which is in the vector view, and then on the properties panel or the texture panel, you can come in here and adjust the scale with it. If you need to take it beyond that, we do have a material player. The team will chat that out. That gives you more flexibility over what the materials are.
Right. Okay.
Now,
Okay.
as
Yeah,
far
and I
as-
mean, I've always done it. I've always done it that way in the past.
Uh-huh.
It's just this other thing, you could actually just click on something and just move it. It was just pretty interesting.
Okay. The other question was, could you take a view that's maybe off kilter a little bit, and could you use a parallel line to adjust that? And today we don't necessarily have a tool to do that. A lot of times what I'll do, if I wanted to get this tile parallel to the floor, I usually manually do that using the status bar or something like that at the bottom of the screen. But that sounds like a nice feature to be able to implement, and we'll certainly make sure we capture that request.
Okay. That's all I was, asking. I've done it in the other thing, and it automatically just adjusts your view.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
incredible. Pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you bet. Hey, thanks for calling in today.
We have a question from Natalie. Hi, Natalie. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hi. I'm calling because I have the interior designer version. So will I be able to use your X13 real-time ray tracing?
Okay, so if you're using Chief Architect Premier or if you're using Chief Architect Interiors, the new X13 real-time ray tracer will be available in both of those products. We do have a separate home designer line, and currently that is not scheduled to go into that line. Things could change, but as of right now, it's only scheduled to go into the professional Chief Architect line for Premier and Interiors.
Okay, I have the interior version, so I will be okay, I guess.
Yes, yep, that's planned to go in the Chief Architect Interiors product, so you should be able to enjoy the new real-time ray tracing.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for calling in.
Scott, let's check in with Tyler Reed. Hi, Tyler. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering if PBR, the physical-based reality, is going to be affected on a Mac moving forward in X13.
So currently, when you take a PBR view and you don't have the ability, whether it's a video card or in this case a platform, if you don't have the ability to support real-time ray tracing, it will work exactly as it does today in X12. So there would be no change to that, with the exception of a few new features, like being able to put line drawing on a few of your renderings, something like I have up here, using this clay rendering as an example where we put line drawing on here. Also, if I toggle back over to a standard view or a watercolor view, watercolor already has rendering on it, but you'll be able to add line drawing to all of your render techniques. And so that will be a new feature that you can actually do on a Mac today or in X13.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, why did you pursue improving on the ray trace versus the PBR?
Sure. So this is an improvement on PBR. Instead of using what we were using previously, the technology that we were using previously, we're now using ray tracing essentially. And so the views that you're seeing here are PBR views. So there's not a new rendering technique or anything like that. We simply, if you have that checkbox checked that Scott showed you to use ray tracing, we will kind of change what we're doing under the hood to generate the PBR view. But this is an improvement on the PBR technology. It's using ray tracing, but it's very independent from the ray tracer as it has existed in previous versions.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, Tyler, I don't know if you can see my screen here.
Yes.
But inside of the rendering options for the physically based render, you're going to find an option in here that is a check mark to support ray tracing. And then that's a function that you'll get. Again, your video card would need to support it, and that's what enables that real-time ray tracing to occur.
So it sounds like this won't be available on a Mac until X14, roughly, approximately.
More than likely. I mean, again, as we kind of mentioned, Mac has announced a new video card, and that video card isn't commercially available yet. And as a result of that, we have focused our time on what is available, which is on the PC DirectX and using video cards like the NVIDIA RTX card, or in theory, the AMD Radeon card that was just announced yesterday. And so we've just focused on our time on what's commercially available today. Hopefully Mac will have that card available and we can get to work on it quickly. But we are at least stating today that the real-time ray tracing just won't be available when we ship X13 because of that limitation.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah.
Scott Kelton wrote in and he was wondering, how do I see if my computer supports ray tracing?
Oh yeah, so good question. So if I just open up the preferences dialog over here, let me just point that out. inside of your preferences, one of the things that we've done here is we've physically enabled and indicated whether your hardware is supportive of it. So I kind of highlighted that here in my preferences. And then if I open up, go back here one thing, I've got a second monitor over here, so I apologize for looking over. Let me just grab our system requirements and our hardware just to kind of make sure that that may have flipped by earlier on the presentation. So what we're recommending today is the NVIDIA and specifically the RTX card. The RTX 3 series just shipped. They're very difficult to get right now. They've been selling out. I currently have a RTX 3080, and I believe those sell for the range of about $700. There's a 3070 and a 3090. And then yesterday, AMD did announce a new video card, probably in a similar price range. However, they may be a little bit more competitive. But we haven't been able to get our hands on one of those. So while we're optimistic it would be supportive of it, we just don't know. But right now, we're recommending the RTX video card. And my laptop that I've been using actually supports or has an RTX 2060. It works pretty good. But when I go to my desktop that has the RTX 3080, wow, it is really, really fast when you rotate your camera.
Thanks, Scott. We have a question from Christopher. Hi, Christopher. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, I'm a IMAX Pro user, but so I'm not sure I could get the new card even when it comes out. But my question is this: my projects now are running up to over 1 million surfaces, and it's slowing it down. And when I do recordings on walkthrough videos at 60 frames per second, running 80 seconds, it can take up to 4 hours to record those walkthroughs. If I switch to a PC with a 3080, can I expect kind of major improvements in those two features? And can I speed it up from what I'm doing now?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for your question, Christopher. I'm gonna ask Ryan to maybe address that about the walkthrough question that you have.
As far as recording walkthroughs, the amount of time that it takes to record a walkthrough is largely a function of how long or how fast you can render, a single frame in the program. So that's directly a function of how powerful your video card is. So it is very likely that if you switch to a more powerful video card, which the 3080 is, that you will, in some cases, probably drastically improve or reduce the amount of time it takes to record a walkthrough. Yes.
Will we be able to do walkthroughs in ray trace mode?
So that's a good question. The way that it works currently, you can do that with the caveat of it's kind of difficult to determine how long it's going to take to record that walkthrough. So one of the things that you've seen here when Scott moves the camera around is that it takes a short amount of time to kind of converge on an image that's of a high quality. And that doesn't change when you're recording a walkthrough. So we still have to converge for each frame that we render on an image that is of a high quality. And so the big question at this point, and this is still something that we're investigating, is how practical it's going to be from a performance perspective, from a perspective of how long it takes you to record that walkthrough when you're using this functionality. So to answer your question, maybe we're still investigating that. But there are still some questions that we need to answer before we can answer your question, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Christopher, for calling in today.
We have a question from Margaret. Hi, Margaret. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi there. This is a direct question to my PC. I have a Quadro P4000. How does that rate in all of this?
Yeah, so if I just open up the system requirements slide and what the recommended settings are. So if you have an existing video card today, again, what we're saying that we will support real-time ray tracing on would be the GTX 1060, again with 6 gig of memory, the GTX 1660, or what we're recommending is the RTX cards.
So from somebody that knows nothing about any of that, I was just basically asking where mine ranks.
Well, Ryan, you probably know about this this site that ranks all the video cards. Maybe you can weigh in on.
To be perfectly honest, I don't know if the Quadro drivers, so the non-RTX Quadro cards, have been updated to support DXR, which is the technology required to do real-time ray tracing. I know that with regards to, you can see the GTX 1060 here, which is not an RTX card. So driver updates essentially made it possible to use ray tracing on those cards. I don't know if NVIDIA did something similar for the Quadro cards. So I'm not sure, but we can certainly figure that out and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Margaret, there is a website out there for benchmarking video cards. If you're curious where yours stacks up on performance and those types of things. I'm not familiar with all the video cards, but again, what we're recommending to do the real-time ray tracing is the RTX card. So if you are looking at upgrading, the RTX 3 series might be a great option for you.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
We have a question from Zach Smith. Hi, Zach. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I was just wondering, I just looked to verify my video card is the 1060 with the 8 gig. So I was wondering, I know it's kind of like on the lower end, but it's not the bottom of the barrel either. So is there going to be like a beta test? And if so, when is that going to be?
Yeah, so great question. And so the beta test, we will be pushing that out. Most likely between now and the end of the year, we'll have an initial beta test that is maybe a smaller group so that we can gather feedback at a smaller group. And then after the first of the year, it'll be a little bit larger group. And Zach, if you're interested in participating in that, you can always send an email request. We have a specific email, beta@chiefarchitect.com, and we can put you on the list. We can't make any promises that everybody would be selected. It is possibly a large list this year, but I would encourage you to send an email out so that we can put you on that.
Okay, and when is the projected release?
Well, we're saying that it should be sometime in late Q1 is what we're expecting. That could shift, but as of right now, we're saying late Q1.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Thanks for calling in.
All right, thank you.
Scott and Ryan, let's check in with Annette. Hi, Annette. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. How are you doing?
Hey, Annette. How are you?
Oh, really good. Doing really well. I have a couple of questions that I run into, and I kind of have some of the answers with Adrian we were talking about. And I guess I'd throw it out there with you. How can you show some realistic people? Like if they're standing in the kitchen, you wanted to display something a little different. Are you guys going to work on something with that?
Yeah, so Annette, your question here is if you want to put a realistic person here in the kitchen. We currently have a silhouette library, and that's what we have available. Previously, we had a people library. Most of them were employees, and they were a much younger version of us now. But we don't currently have a person library that is available. And today, to get those, of course, you can import 3D Studio files or a number of other formats, the Collada files, and bring those in. We've just been reluctant to license specific people with our own library, but being able to import those from external sources has kind of been our approach with people.
Okay. I might be able to hook you up with something like that.
Okay, sure. You send us your new picture and we'll get you in there.
Okay. I have, I guess I got just a couple other ones real quick. Can you add a tool to bevel the edges to create realism? And did you add more accurate real world lighting in PBR?
Okay, so it sounds like you got two questions there. One is being able to bevel your edges, and two, improve the lighting model. Is that fair?
Correct.
So with beveling edges, let me just make sure I understand what you're after. Give me an example of a beveled edge.
Well, just kind of like around the trees, making it look realistic. Being able, like if you're doing an exterior, trying to put like little leaves down on the ground with the grass, you know, like little,
Okay.
that type of, it makes it look a little bit more realistic.
Sure. Sure. Okay. I'm probably going to punt that out to one of our materials people out there. I'm not sure if, Dustin, if you have a microphone.
The question was how to get like more realistic foliage, like leaves and dirt and stuff on the ground.
Correct.
Okay. Let's see. I'll actually write that down. You can get some 3D models of just random, debris. You can import into Chief. Maybe a transparent PNG would do it, but I have seen some cool little effects. Let me write down. You get a piece of paper, and you just like to have some debris on the ground, right? Some like fall leaves and some random stuff on the ground.
Yeah, if I can, I could send you a couple things I worked on, and I could send you some pictures to show you.
I would love that. I would love to see it.
Okay. How do I get that over to you?
Just send it to dustin@chiefarchitect.com, and I'll take a look, and we'll get it on the list.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
And then I think your last question there, Annette, was, are we doing better lighting in Chief Architect X13? I think what you're going to find is when you have the ability to do the real-time ray tracing, our lighting model is now going to be consistent across all of our camera techniques.
Okay.
And currently today, when you ray trace, that's actually a separate rendering engine and a separate model. So the lighting can be very, very different in that. But in Chief Architect X13, with the PBR being in the same lighting family, then it's very easy to set that up. And if I just kind of pop over to the program here and I switch over, I'm in the standard view right now. And if I switch over into the physically based mode over here, let's just kind of check our properties here. If I switch over into the physically based mode, so you're going to notice that the lighting gets very realistic. And of course, you're probably familiar with being able to build lighting sets and turn lighting on and adjust things. Yeah, so I think you're going to find that it's a much friendlier and easier way to generate great renderings in here as we do this. So I'm running a 3080 card right now, and you can see how easy that is. And then it refreshes and resolves. You can think of that as doing a pass. And then it's just immediate. You get glass in here that resolves very quickly. So if you're doing showers or bathrooms, it's a great way to be able to do those things. And this is kind of a fun example that I showed a little bit earlier. We'll back out just a little bit. But I think you're going to find the lighting model is a lot friendlier and easier to use going forward in X13.
Okay. Yeah, because my video card I work with is a GTX 1660 Super NVIDIA card. It's a work pretty
yeah. Yeah.
So I think I'll be good with that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, sounds good. Thanks for calling in today.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
You bet.
We have a question from Elliot. Hi, Elliot. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Scott and Ryan. Thank you for taking my call. This is incredibly exciting. I rebuild my computer about every 3 or 4 years, and I'm in like next few weeks. So this is just real timely. Right now, I'm using a NVIDIA GTX 1060 with 3 gigabytes on the video card on an AMD Ryzen 1700 with 16 gigabytes of RAM. And so I had never done a ray trace until we started this webinar, and so I had a drawing open on my computer, so I did one, and it worked okay off of the perspective drawing of the outside of the building, and it took about a minute or a minute and a half to render, but it was a little bit grainy.
Right.
So it worked, but it was a little bit grainy.
Right.
But I'm definitely going to move forward to the RTX since I'm getting ready to rebuild the computer anyway. But there was one question. There's one question. When I had the dialog box open to do a ray trace from the perspective, there's an option for 360-degree panorama.
Sure.
How do you do that? How do you? I mean,
Well, the best thing to do when you actually set up your scene. Let me just open up a camera in here. Where are we at? There we go. A lot of times when you grab a camera and you open it up, let's go ahead and pop this open. And let's say you're going to ray trace this scene in here explicitly. When you click the ray trace option, you can go through, and I actually built a specific panoramic ray trace. Let's just use the smaller one. And you go in here and you click edit. There is the option to generate this as a 360. So the recommendation typically when you do that is stand in the centroid, or near the center of the room, and then I usually rotate the camera around a little bit as if I were standing in the center and rotating and looking around. And then you can push these out to the cloud when you render these, because when they render, it's basically, I'm going to cancel out of this. Let me open up the website and I'll just show you an example if I can pop out there. If I can grab one here. Yeah. Let me pull this over and let me go out to my account. Actually, let me go back here. Should have one here at /360. Then these renderings, as you see a couple of these examples, right? So this is a 360 render. When you push it up onto the cloud, we have a viewer that you can put these on your own website as we have here, and then we'll help render those for you because we have a reader for it. If you end up sending this to somebody on their phone, they're just built in, or if you end up on an iPad, it does it as well. So those are nice options because these 360 renders allow you to give them a much broader perspective of the design.
That's great, because my next question was, does my client have to have the same technology in their computer to be able to look at these files?
Now, if you just go to our website, chiefarchitect.com/360,
okay,
then you can see an example of them. And then if you export one and put it in your account, let me just duplicate this real quick, and I'll open up my account that I have. What you can do inside of your account, once you push those up, you're going to have an area in here for your 360 panoramas. And once you open that up, I've exported a couple of these. So here's a wine room. There's a share option in here. When you click that, you can grab this URL link, just text it to them, and it'll just work on their phone. Or you can email it to them, or there's an embed if you want to put it on your website, kind of like we were looking at on here. There's a few different renderings that we have up here, and those are just embedded on the website. And that's an advantage to the cloud account that you get when you have Chief Architect.
fantastic, right? I really like that. So I've been using X12 and for about a year, and I spent a lot of time on this program, and I love it. I learn every day. So is there an estimated cost of what it would be to upgrade to X13, or is that something we just have to wait and see?
Well, no, you can send us your credit card right now. No, the way the program works today is we have the support and software assurance program, and for $5.25 you can keep your SSA up to date, and if your SSA is up to date, you get free upgrades. That SSA price is good for a year, and that includes your support and your software upgrades, catalog downloads, and all the services, technical support that we offer.
I understand. So then I just need to make sure I renew the SSA before before it expires.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then what about the processor in the computer? Is there I thought my computer was pretty hot until I realized my video card could be a lot hotter.
Yeah, on our website, if you go down and you look at our system requirements here, what I would always point people to is the recommended system requirements. And we have that down here. Now, this hasn't been updated with respect to what we're thinking about with X13. And the video card requirement will probably change to the slide that I've been showing,
Right.
recommending the RTX cards. My RTX card came with 10 gigabytes on it. It's kind of crazy. The 3090 cards come with 12 to, I believe it's even up to 16 gigabytes. So these cards have gotten very powerful, and you can build a very impressive machine, I think, for under $2,000 now.
Great. Yeah, that's what I do. Okay. Well, I appreciate your time. I really, really enjoyed this.
You bet.
Thank you.
Scott and Ryan, we have a question from Farouk. Hi, Farouk. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. So I have a question of walkthrough video. Usually, you know, there is when designing whole house, it's a big walkthrough part, and when we try to record it, it's going to take a long time. But we don't want that, long part. We want small fraction, right? So then what happened? If I have, let's say, in-house, I have 4 or 5 small part, and each one is taking 1 hour, then I have to sit with my computer whole every time. But if I can manage all 6 part and I am trying to render at night time, then I can say my working hours. So is it possible? So like a small render part, I can render record the video in 1 click.
So you want to be able to queue all of your videos, or all
Exactly.
of your paths.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to figure out, Brian, do you know the answer, or somebody, maybe Alex is out there? Can we queue the new walkthroughs up so that they can be queued up? We don't know the answer to that, but if you go back, and I'll make sure the staff here chats out the link to the walkthrough video. We just did this maybe a month ago or so, and it talks about the new walkthrough things. And then make sure you chat in your email, and then I'll or somebody here will get back to you about if you can queue those up in X13 or not.
Scott, let's check in with Peter. Hi, Peter. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Yes, I unfortunately lost power for about 15 minutes after 5 minutes into this. So I'm just wondering whether you're going to be able to, I'm going to be able to see this later somewhere.
Oh yeah, sure. So we're recording today's session, and I believe tomorrow we'll be sending out a link to the session, and you'll be able to find that. We'll send an email out with it, and you'll be able to watch it.
Great. And also the benchmark website that you mentioned, if we could get a pointer to that, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Scott, we have a question from Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, hi. I was curious about texture mapping. Is there going to be any improvements on texture mapping? Sometimes we get objects where you have to create multiple versions of the same material to get one side to display in one direction, and or to get them basically look like they're all going in the same direction in the right way that an object may be created, if that makes sense.
We have made it a little bit easier to make improvements to which way the texture is going, especially when you have maybe a shower and you need to adjust the materials in different ways. And I'm going to chat this out here, or one of the staff members will. We just did a new materials webinar. Did you get a chance to attend that here a couple weeks ago?
I did not know, unfortunately.
So we did talk about that quite a bit in that session, and I'm going to, or one of the staff members here is going to chat the link out to that. And it kind of goes through the different changes that we're making with respect to how to make that a little bit easier for managing your materials and their directions.
Yeah, that was the main thing I just wanted to know. I appreciate it. I think the website for the video card and PC specs to know is passmark.com.
Oh, Passmark?
Yeah, that one gives basically ratings of how fast or how well a certain video cards and CPUs will perform.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for passing it along.
Yep.
We have a question from Heidi. Hi, Heidi. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I have actually a couple of questions. I have one client that likes line drawings with a lot of jiggle to give clients.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm wondering with the new rendering, if I would be able to do that with shadows so it doesn't look quite as flat. You know, instead of looking like a coloring book, it would still have shading and such.
Okay. Well, you should be able to. Let me see if I have that available here. Let me grab a plan here. So one of the things that we've done is we have added line drawing to more of the cameras. So the standard camera, the PBR camera, and then the new clay camera. And if we kind of switch over here, let me just slide over a little bit so we can kind of take a look at this wall, and I'll switch my camera view over. So let's go into our settings. So what you're going to find, first of all, in the standard view that I have open, you can turn line drawing on, and you have the amount of squiggles. So if you wanted to crank that up in here to a bigger number, right? And we update that view, you're going to see the changes that we can adjust and make that adjustment in this type of view. Doesn't change significantly, but you can see that it becomes to squiggle. So those views are available, and if you wanted to go in and adjust it in the standard view, and then of course we have the new clay view with the same option with line drawing on top. And if you wanted to adjust that squiggle, you find that information down here.
Okay, yeah, that looks, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, couple other little questions. I love that in X12 you added like a glass wall for showers and things like that. However, when you put that shower wall in, it's going down into the floor. So it's like cutting through the flooring material and stuff. So it's
that sounds kind of odd to me. So, you know, without looking at your plan, let me just grab this particular shower that I have here that has a glass wall in there. Let's turn on the vector camera. That'll make it pretty easy to see exactly where we have that. So you're saying that the camera is going down below where my cursor is into the floor?
Yeah, see how you can see that line there, and you see the subfloor through it when you go into your rendering.
Let's switch this over to the physically based. And if I zoom in a little bit,
it's not showing on that. Okay, well maybe
make sure in your wall settings, we've added a new feature in here. And if you click on your wall, this was new in 12. So if I click on my wall, and let's just open this up. I'm going to use the open option down here. See if this comes up. And in your wall types, let's go into the glass shower wall. Do you see this here? Okay. When you click the define option and you come down, one of the things you can do is you can mark that this is a partition wall.
Oh, okay.
So it's possible, again, we introduced that, I believe, in X12. It's possible that you may have opened up an older plan or an older template plan, and that was a new change we made so that it won't cut. If it's not marked as a partition wall, it won't, you know, that wouldn't cut properly, and you'd see the, you know, the OSB or the plywood or whatever it is.
Okay.
So make sure that's a partition wall. And then as you can kind of see here, as we zoom in and out, you know, you're not going to see that cut through the flooring or your wall.
Okay, and then, so I've had the kind of a similar issue with invisible walls where it's just a room divider.
Oh.
And you know, you have a doorway with no casing on it,
Okay.
This invisible wall cuts through the drywall, and I have had trouble getting that outside corner to show properly.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes maybe when it meets exactly a certain corner right at the end, I'm not sure I have a plan open that shows that exactly, but you can get into a situation that it cuts that. But again, make sure your wall is marked as a partition wall. I'm not sure I have an example plan that could show you that quickly. But I would start with making sure that you've got your wall set up as a partition wall to eliminate cutting through the different layers.
I will look at that. And just I was really excited that you added bay windows and bow windows in X12.
Uh-huh.
But what we still can't do is put a molding around the outside of it. The moldings are still attached to the individual windows. Right.
And on the exterior?
On the interior of the home, but not on the individual windows going out. So you've got so you're seeing it where the drywall is going into the bay window.
Okay. Well, I'm not super familiar with that particular issue, but if you wanted to button up that plan and send it in through our support center, we can at least maybe take a look at it and point you in the right direction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any options on actually showing glass block like it really is?
Glass block?
Yeah, if you do a glass block window, it's just like applying a material to the glass and it doesn't render.
Well, I don't know. I haven't tried it. We could try it. Yeah.
Hey, Dustin here. A lot of the textured glass in Core Catalog will work just fine now with the X13 ray tracer. The glass block, however, is an older version, and so I will take a look at that and try and get it more current. So hopefully it looks better in X13.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Heidi. We have a question from Charles Volts. Hi, Charles. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, it's a technical question about the video cards. I'm shopping for parts now. I'm buying parts now for a new build, and I'm shopping for the RTX 380. And I've been reading about the Asus and the Founders, the NVIDIA version of the cards are good, but other cards have a capacitor problem. And I was wondering if y'all are familiar with that, or what brand of video card you're having success with on the RTX 380.
So I'm not sure exactly what brand Scott has in his machine, but I would expect that any brand of 3080 you get is going to perform just fine. I don't have all of them in-house. We don't have all of them in-house because you really can't buy those cards very effectively right now. But I would assume that you're not going to encounter any problems based on the vendor of the GPU.
Right. There was a capacitor question and a heat question that I was reading about, but that's fine. I just was didn't know if y'all waded through that problem and had a solution. So I'm going to buy what I know is safe, I guess now, but there's nothing available anyway, so I'm waiting.
Right.
Thanks for the answer.
I saw something very similar. This is Al. I saw something very similar. A lot of it had to do with power consumption on the card. If you tried to overclock or something, you generate too much heat and essentially quit. So I think under normal circumstances, if you don't overclock the card, you'll be okay.
Right. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. And just to answer your question there, I do have the RTX 3080. It's the Founders Edition. And there are requirements that they post on there. And I believe one of them is you need to have at least 1,000. I think it's recommended at least 1,000 watt power supply.
Right. Well, yeah. I've read the 850, but I've got 1,000 watts, so I'm good there. Yeah. But thanks for that.
Yeah, you bet.
Let's check in with Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I'm running X12 on a MacBook Pro. I am not a architect, I'm a builder, so probably my high definition rendering requirements are not the same as some of you. But my problem is we're designing and building a lot of very simple homes with not a lot of detail. And especially on our exterior elevations, when we do a rendering, even after trying to do a ray trace, I find very little difference in the finished product between a standard or I forget the other mode, and what I eventually get from a ray trace, even after it's been running for 8, 9, 10 hours. Either what am I doing wrong, or what can I do to help enhance my renderings that I'm getting when there's not a lot of detail on the plan?
Yeah, I was just looking for an example that I could bring up. So if I open up this view, this is a ray trace render of a house. And if I just grab that house right now and open it up here in the program, and if we just kind of go in here and let's zoom out, and I'm going to grab that same camera, and then you compare it, and I'll toggle over to the other view. It's a slightly different camera view, but in this view here, you're going to notice that I have reflectivity on the glass. And when I toggle over to the actual model, in this view, I don't have any of that information in here. So the ray trace, when you kick these off, and typically what I recommend, if you don't, I save some predefined views here, so I have an exterior view. One of the things that I typically would recommend is you launch the assistant and choose that it's indoor or outdoor. We should probably include an indoor and outdoor out of the box, so you can choose one of those. But if you kind of go through here and you walk through what the size of it is, and then whether it's sunny or overcast, and then when you actually kick off a ray trace, you should see a lot better result. And if you're not, I would at least point you to the ray trace video session that we did here maybe a few weeks ago. Maybe it was even a little bit longer than that. And we'll chat that out. But I would encourage you to watch that session so that you can see and get better results from maybe this view to something that looks more like this view here.
Yeah, I will do that. My renderings are looking quite cartoonish, even though they do, have as much detail as I can draw for that particular house. And I'm just wondering, what am I not doing?
Yeah. Well, again, I would at least point you to that session that we did here last month on ray trace rendering.
Thank you. I'll look at that.
You bet.
Let's check back in with Danielle. Hi, Danielle. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. I just had a question on materials. When you create your a new material, and I get a picture of, say, a piece of tile or something from a website, and I put it in, it doesn't allow me to do it like in brick pattern or like change so that your picture can be offset from another as it kind of patterns out across the wall. Is there a way to do that, or is that going to be coming here so that I don't have to grab a picture of the tile that has the brick, several tiles included, that has that pattern that I want?
Okay. Let me reach out to Dustin. He's on our call today, and he's one of our material gurus and did a session on that here just a few weeks ago. Dustin, would you be able to answer Danielle's question?
Yeah, if I heard the question correctly, you are taking images off of websites and trying to put them in Chief, and they aren't offsetting correctly. You're getting those weird square seams and everything.
Yeah. So if I say I have a 3x6 tile and I want it in a brick pattern on the wall, but it only puts it in, lines.
Yeah. So what's happening is the image you're taking is a static image, and so you just kind of get what you get with that image. If you would like to generate your own images that do offset, we'll link the material builder in chat, and actually somebody else requested a brick builder as well, and that's kind of on my list too. So the tile's already on there. Bricks will be on the way. But go ahead and check it's the symbols and content section of Chief Talk. We'll post it in the chat, and that will let you generate your own tiles and bricks that will offset properly, and you'll have control over color and grout and everything else. Does that help you out?
Yep.
Yeah. Also, Danielle, the team will chat out the materials webinar. Dustin actually did that here a few weeks ago, and he goes into more detail about how the materials work, and also talks a little bit about this substance player that he just referred to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Scott, we have a question from Amy. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I just have a super quick question about a lot of the homes that I'm working on have what I call normal size bathrooms that I am trying to ray trace in a panoramic view. But what I'm finding is that when I can't, even if I'm in the center of the room, it's cutting out some of my walls. So basically it just doesn't look good because it's showing the middle of that wall. And I'm just wondering if there's anything I can do to manipulate that to get good results even in a smaller space.
Okay. Well, Abby, let's see if we can help here. Let me just pop open one of the plans. Here's a, well, I don't know if this would classify as a small bathroom, but it's what I have. And if we open up this camera here, so when you are looking at this and you're specifically trying to do a panoramic render, is that right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so that one shower wall
okay.
would, I found that it cuts out. So it's like going into the middle of that wall.
Okay.
And I've, really frustratingly worked on trying to move the camera around, find the right sweet spot. And it's in a smaller, bathroom, it's just really tough. And I'm just wondering if I'm just missing something or if that's just really not possible in a smaller, like I want to make the camera smaller almost. It just turns around like a person does, but I just can't seem to manipulate it to do that.
Okay, so I've zoomed in here onto my plan view and you see my camera that I have highlighted?
Yes.
And you can see this axis point or this line of sight that I have out here.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen is this camera is going to rotate really around that point.
Okay.
And so if you make this very, very small
and manipulate that,
and now when you rotate it around, it will stand in place. And then when you're doing a 360 render, so I typically will put this in the middle of the room, right? And then you can rotate around, and then wherever you end up will be kind of your hero spot when you create this rendering. So we go back into our view here. And again, if we just kind of rotate around, and we can kind of verify, is it going to run into the wall? So that looks okay, right?
Right.
So at this point, I'm happy with it. And then you can export it, file, export, and this isn't a PBR or ray trace. But at that point, you can then export this as a 360 render. Hopefully that would point you into the right direction. Brian?
If you open your camera dialog, so if you go back to your plan view and open the camera specification dialog, one thing that may help here is your clip surfaces within property. So it sounds to me like what you're describing are the surfaces are being clipped by the near clipping plane of the camera. And I think that defaults to a bigger value. I'm not sure exactly what it is. It might be 6 or something by default, but try reducing that to the smallest value possible if you haven't already.
Awesome. That helps a lot. Thank you so much.
We have a question from Sean Shaw. Hi, Sean. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks again, guys. Got a real quick question, and this goes back a little ways, but when you're putting backdrops in, a lot of times I'll go out to the house, I'll take a picture out of the back window, and I do it on my phone, I do it, landscape, but sometimes when I bring the backdrop in, either it's so big or too small. What is the optimum of how to set up that photo to where you get a realistic size and it's not huge, but a lot of times I get lucky and I just actually get a perfect thing. Or I'm asking that question, is there a specific size that we should be using to give us an accurate sizing?
Yeah, so Sean, great question. And I'm not sure I'm the best person to give you the counsel. I don't use too big of images because a lot of times when you put them in the program, we don't typically recommend going over 1024, but I'm going to just pause here and see if maybe Adrian or one of the other staff members has a good recommendation on how to best handle the backdrops.
Regarding the backdrop resolution, we usually distribute 1024 images with the software just so that we don't bog your scenes down when you add them. So you can import whatever size images you'd like and you can use those as your backdrops.
Right, but sometimes if the resolution is really high, the actual scene will be huge. And you know what I mean? is there a proper, I guess, frame setting, like so many pixels by so many pixels to give you what the average is on 1/4 inch scale when you're drawing, when you've got a house?
Yeah, the way that kind of works is it doesn't necessarily, Ryan probably could correct me if I'm misspeaking here, but it's not necessarily the resolution of the image that's dictating that. The way those backgrounds work is they just get kind of plastered behind your scene. So it's like if you were to imagine just taking that image, it gets stretched to fit on your monitor regardless of the angle that you have looking out your camera. So one thing that we kind of do to trick background sometimes is you can create like a polyline solid or a surface outside the window that's important to show that view, and then you can map it to the solid surface instead. And then that way, when you're taking your camera angles and looking out the window, it's more of a static type of a scene that you're looking at, instead of the program trying to just kind of map this arbitrary image behind your house. I don't know.
Scott, could you possibly do that outside that window to show me what she's talking about?
Yeah, I think what she's suggesting here, is if we used a polyline solid and we just create a big solid out here, and let's make sure that we set this to be pretty high. Slide this over. So I'm going to make it 120 inches. And again, I'm not sure this is going to work for what I'm trying to do. Let's take a brand new camera. All right. And we'll switch our view over to the standard view. Okay, so right now we're looking out at, and we've hit a concrete wall, right? And I think what she's suggesting, let's kind of go around here. Let's push this back and we'll pull our camera out so we can paint this. And let me open up my library, make sure that I have a backdrop or a photo. Ooh, I don't have, let me see if I have any photos. I need actually an image. Here we go. I should find something in here. Okay, well, this isn't great, but
it's good enough.
I don't have, I've imported all those as backdrops, which is kind of a specific image. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spray that on to that solid over here.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab that and we'll paint it on to the solid here. Okay, so it's on the solid, right?
Right.
And then I'm just going to kind of pull that back so it's in front of the window. And then we pull the camera back so that we're inside of the room. And we go back over and open that up. There it is.
Right. I guess the only tough part is if you're doing that, though, if you got sun coming in the windows,
well, yeah,
they're all blocked. Didn't know if there's any way to kind of think about that in the future, guys.
Yeah.
You know, to help.
Yeah, typically what I do when I take my photo, Sean, is I try to think about not being really, really close to the scene. So if I'm going to take a picture of a lake scene, I want to do it from what I think is a relative distance from the window itself, an actual one. And I've had pretty good experience doing that, just thinking about what would it actually look like through the window when you take those photos. Also, I've used a drone to get more of a panoramic image, because those are very difficult to get at a certain height, especially if you're on a sloped lot.
Right, but like, let's say if you've got a beach house and you're getting a shot of the beach.
Yep.
Okay, that would be off their back deck that you would see through all the windows there.
Right.
Let's say when you do your picture, though, should you set your picture up as a panorama? Or
well, I think you can get a better result as you rotate around if you're gonna plan on doing a walkthrough or something like that, or if you just want static shots. In that case, I'd probably get a drone and set it at the right elevation where you think those windows would actually be, or that deck would actually be.
Right, right. Well, that's the only thing. I don't have a drone typically.
There's a lot of real estate supportive drone photographers now that are out there. I hired one for one of my lots, and it, was like $100 for all the photos that he took off of it.
Right, right. Okay. Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
You bet.
We have a few more questions, Scott. We have Tim here with one. Hi, Tim.
Okay.
Hey, going back to the video card, I'm looking at getting my boss to buy me a new laptop. A lot of my work is mobile. These video cards I'm looking at look like they're made for desktops. Can we get something for a laptop that works for this real-time ray tracing, or how does that go?
Yeah, good question, Tim. So tell your boss you want the nicest possible laptop, of course.
Yes.
So my laptop that I'm currently using is a Lenovo. I bought it a year ago from Costco for $1,200. And it has an RTX 2060 in it.
Okay.
And it works really pretty well using real-time ray tracing. When I compare it to my desktop with the brand new 3080, of course, there's a big difference.
Right.
But those laptops are getting RTX cards or have RTX cards today. I'm not sure when the 3 series would be available for those. Maybe Ryan, you're familiar with the situation with that on laptops.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the 30 series mobile chips would be available either. I'll just kind of reiterate. So we've done all of our development on 20 series GPUs, and that's gone pretty well. You get pretty good performance, certainly usable performance on a 20 series graphics card. So if you are looking for mobile, if you can't figure out, if you can't do research and figure out when the 30 series mobile GPUs are going to be released, going with the 20 series card is not a bad idea.
Still in the RTX family.
Definitely in the RTX family.
And as much RAM as possible then?
I don't know about as much as possible.
Well,
but
economically possible.
Yeah, within reason. I would recommend, a decent amount of memory on the machine. That's not necessarily going to be a huge factor in rendering, but it's going to be a factor in everything else that you're doing. So
I guess I meant like the video you're mentioning.
Sure. Okay.
The
Yeah.
6 gigabytes and the.
Sure. More memory does not hurt.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Tim.
We have a question from Austin. Hi, Austin. Go ahead and ask your question.
A quick question. In X13, I'm wondering if there's going to be any additional development with backdrops, with 360 photography being so common in mobile devices nowadays. If there's going to be, if you're working on any sort of advancements to allow us to bring in a 360 image, and then as you rotate your model around, that it's tied to a little bit smarter backdrop per se than a static single image.
Austin, do you use the current option for panoramic backdrops today?
I do not.
Okay. So there is an option for your backdrops today to support panoramic, and you might at least look at that, and then maybe I'll let Ryan, if I'm opening up one of my plans here, maybe weigh in on anything else about how that might work.
So I'm not aware, I don't think there's any really significant changes to the way that backdrops are going to work in X13 at this point. But I would definitely say that if you have a panoramic image, the panoramic tool works pretty well. If you go into your backdrop and you make it panoramic, then it will essentially wrap around your house. And in particular, if you have an image that is actually a panorama, that should work pretty well as is.
Awesome. Yeah, I actually was totally unaware of that. So that's great.
Yeah, I would try that for sure.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think when you put a backdrop in here, open up my library here and we just grab a backdrop. Let me see if I've got one handy. Okay, so we'll just drop that in there. And then I believe inside of the backdrop itself, let me see if it's in here. There's an option that you can mark that it's a spherical backdrop.
Yep.
So give that a try and see how that works for you. Maybe that'll be a good thing.
Yeah, it looks like it will. Thank you so much.
You bet.
Scott, we have Tanya with her question. Go ahead
Okay.
and ask your question, Tanya.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Ryan. Hope you're well. So perfect that you're on the scene. And I've encountered this problem many times. So on your tile definition, where you see your mosaic scalloped tile right there, notice how there it's going horizontally.
Okay, sure.
I've encountered this issue many times, whether I'm using a wood pattern, grain, and you've actually got it here. So on one
Sure.
side, it's going horizontally, and on the other side, it's going up and down.
Sure.
How do you
So,
fix that?
Yeah, I'm using, looks like I opened up X12 here, but we've made this a little bit easier in X13. But if we look at this, currently this texture is some deco white Moroccan fish scale texture, right? And what I need to do in this case is rotate it. But if I rotate it, it's
Then it
gonna
rotates the other
rotate it
side.
on this side, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it, and then I'm going to rotate that, and then I'm going to spray it on the other side.
And that's what I have been doing. It's just that it becomes more complicated because then you're dealing with two different patterns of the same thing.
Right.
So it's like, you know, what material is being done. I'm talking about in a grander scale of things.
Yeah, yeah.
So has that problem been fixed? I'm hoping it has been in X13.
Well, the reason it is doing it right here is, first of all, you see how my backsplash is curving. So one of the things is going on here is that is a different object than the object on the left that's in a different direction. And the object on the left is probably a chair rail, and the object that's in the shower is either a backsplash or it's a polyline solid. I can't curve my molding easily doing that, and if I did use the same two objects, more than likely that material would go the same way. But when I'm using two different objects, the materials map differently depending on what it is. And
Gotcha.
you know, yeah, you know how to change that, make a copy of it and change it to be 90 degrees?
Yes, I do.
Oh, okay.
I was just
think,
hoping that there was an easier way.
well, we did make it easier because now when you click on this, we've made that easier because now when you click on that, Tanya, you're going to be able to get a prompt that will just say, do you want to edit this one or do you might want to make a copy of it? And again, the reason that my material did that was because I was using two different objects, a molding and a backsplash.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I would, we'll chat this out one more time, but the materials webinar that we did here just a few weeks ago kind of discusses how we've made changes in there and how it's improved when the new version of X13 comes out.
Excellent.
Scott and Ryan, our final question comes from Perry. Hi, Perry. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, Scott. Good to see you again.
Hey, Perry. Good to be seen.
I've had an NVIDIA 980 Ti for a long time, and it's worked pretty good for me.
Yeah.
Do you think I'm going to need to upgrade with 13?
Well, you don't need to, but
It still benchmarks pretty good.
Yeah, you certainly don't need to. But if you want to take advantage of the real-time ray tracing, then you probably want to move up into the RTX card. You could probably get one for $700, but yeah, you're spending more money.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Hey, thanks everybody for attending today's session. And just kind of a couple of housekeeping things as I open up our website here and talk about our next seminar we have coming up. So if you scroll down on our website, we have a link to our live webinars and training. And actually this Friday, tomorrow, we have a Chief Boot Camp. If you're new to the program or would like to get a running start at it, this boot camp, it's free. It's tomorrow and it's at 10 a.m. Pacific time. That's available. And then next week, if you want to attend our virtual training, this is a paid training class. It's 4 days, 4 hours a day. That's available and it starts next week. And Then the following week, Thursday, we're going to kick off the month for framing. The following week will be about roof framing, and then the end of the month, we're going to take Thanksgiving off. We're going to do wall framing and what's coming up next. So hope that today's session was great for you. We'll be sending out an email with a link to that recorded session that we've done, and also a link to the survey. Hopefully we will see you back here same time, same place for the floor framing webinar, if not on one of the other webinars. Thanks a lot and have a great day.